Hi everyone, we are here to answer some of your questions that you sent in about what it's like to be in a relationship with somebody who has an autoimmune disease. You guys know that I have multiple sclerosis, and I was diagnosed 10 months after Jack and I were married, and so we really thought that this would be a great opportunity to answer some questions that you guys had about just how we handle and deal day to day. So thank you so much for everything you submitted. Your questions are incredible, and we're really hoping that this is helpful.
Absolutely.
So, Jack, what has been the hardest part about watching me go through my diagnosis?
Well, I guess for me, the hardest part is going to be the fact that I'm a person that naturally wants to fix things as quickly as possible. I'm a problem solver by nature. And so being faced with something that I'm never going to fully be able to fix is very difficult for me to accept. It's hard to watch, someone that you care so much about go through something so difficult and to not have the solutions for them. But the only advice I can give is that, the journey of MS is not one that has to be done alone. Obviously we share the journey together, and you just try to get better at it, and try to get more acclimated by the day.
Wonderful. Okay, so next question would be, what are you most afraid of with my illness?
Well, we're people that love to travel, so my greatest fear would be that at some point, at some time, there'd be, doors that would need to be closed, because if her MS were to progress, it would be very hard for me to see that. Not for me so much, but to have to watch her in a capacity where she's not able to do everything that she wants to, that would be extremely difficult for me to handle. And it scares me at times.
Yeah, I think about our honeymoon where we went to Rome and we spent a whole entire day on foot, and it was raining and I was wearing rain boots, and I just remember being in so much pain, having so much fatigue. My legs were numb, it was freezing, and I just had to keep taking breaks, and then we didn't even know that I had multiple sclerosis, but I was feeling some effects of lingering symptoms, and so that really did impact the trip for us, and we had to take breaks and rest, but people do anyway, and I do think that we'll be able to continue to travel and make adjustments, but I hope to be able to do that for as long as possible.
Absolutely, and I don't think it's going to happen, but it is a fear, that is always present, even if it's not overwhelming. It's still there at some level.
Yeah. So, how can those of us with MS best support our spouses?
For me, it's definitely communication. Lots of communication. I've played sports all my life, so I've had a lot of injuries, so I definitely understand pain. But something like cognitive fog, it's very abstract and very hard for me to understand. And again, being someone who likes to fix things, it's hard for me to, to support what I don't understand and to give proper feedback. It's not like a sprained ankle where you can say, it'll get better, or, suck it up, it's okay, obviously. It's something far more elusive to me. And so I require her to give me constant feedback, so that I can give her appropriate support, so that I can understand what she's going through.
Yeah, I definitely think communication, obviously, we've talked about that so many times before, and it was something that I had to learn how to do as well. It wasn't just, having to make Jack understand. It was learning how to effectively communicate my needs to him in a way that would make sense, because everyone has different experiences. We all tackle struggles a different way, and just being able to frame things for him in a way that makes sense with the way that he thinks, and isn't coming from a place of berating or anger. It's just simply trying to explain what I'm feeling, kind of step back a little bit from the emotion of it, and just almost educate on a lot of the things. With cognitive fog, that's something that he's never had that, so he can't necessarily empathize with me. He can have all the sympathy in the world, but he only knows what I tell him of it. And so being able to effectively communicate that, and then also to understand what I need so that I can be able to tell him, is a huge deal. So it's constantly working on our skills together, the way that we share information, and just making sure that we're putting it in a way that is easy for the other person to digest and most effective.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of it at the beginning, Sunny didn't want to overwhelm me. It's something that's present with her all day, every day, so she didn't feel it was right to push that on me all day, every day. But at the same time, if I don't know she's going through an episode, um, it's not fair to either of us in that capacity because I can't support her appropriately when she's going through something if she doesn't let me know. So I would definitely suggest make sure that you're both open and honest with each other about what you need.
Definitely. So that leads pretty well into the next question of, do you think that MS has caused friction between you, and have you argued about it?
I would say that it hasn't caused friction per se. When Sunny and I were initially dating, she had brought up to me a few times that she was experiencing these symptoms, that she thought it might be MS, and it's something she had been struggling with for a long time. And it wasn't that I did not believe her, it's that I didn't want to believe. It seemed very improbable, and we never want to believe anything will terrible happen to us or the ones that we love. So, I think that sometimes my feedback, though it was from an optimistic, place, it may have not been the best in hindsight. Rather than tell someone there's no way, you don't have it. Obviously, that doesn't help them. So I would be aware of that. Your optimism isn't always what's most needed. So. Yeah, so not
great.
friction per se.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so important too to highlight that, there was part of the question that we just mentioned having arguments about it. And we truly, really haven't had arguments about my MS. I think we've had discussions, and I really, really do want to stress that there's a huge difference between a discussion and an argument. When
Sure.
we come together and I say, hey, this is really something that I need from you, or this is frustrating me a little bit, or I don't feel like you understood that, it doesn't come to the point of argument. It's really just an impassioned plea to say, please understand where I'm coming from, this is what I need. And if he feels differently about something, then we discuss it, but it's never been to the point of an argument. No.
Again, it's hard for someone who doesn't have MS to always be aware that someone else is going through something all day, every day, even if there's no symptoms immediately present. It's something that the person with MS always carries. And just by nature, you're not going to think about it all day, every day, the same way that someone that has MS would think about it. So, I would say making sure that your significant other is aware when you are experiencing symptoms rather than bottling it up or trying to protect them. I would definitely make sure that you're open in that capacity.
For sure. And then the last thing, and then we'll go to the next question, would just be my best advice too for those of us who do struggle with an autoimmune disorder and being in a relationship. A lot of us, it's taken a long time to get our diagnoses, and maybe we've gone through a period of not being believed or not feeling understood. And it's really important to try to remember it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but to try and remember that we cannot always come from a place of defensiveness. And that is something that I did for a long time. I would enter into any conversation about it feeling defensive or feeling like I had to over explain myself, and we need to realize that that's not needed, because we don't owe that to anyone, and that the people that love you don't need that from you. They just want the communication. They don't need the defensiveness. How can I help my husband cope with not knowing what will happen to me? That was a question from someone. So how can she help her husband not knowing what will happen to her?
Well, no one really knows what's going to happen in the future anyways, so the first thing I would say is that try not to dwell on things that haven't happened. Be aware of them and have open communication about it. People need to mentally prepare for the possibility, but at the same time, it shouldn't be something that is a determining factor on what you're doing. I would say that each person with autoimmune diseases, they go through their own journey, and each person experiences them differently, so I can't say what would be right for anyone in particular. But for me, the communication, again, is what I really end up going back to, because you should have conversations about the possibility, but I wouldn't limit yourself in any capacity based on things that haven't happened. That would be my best advice.
I think that's great. Yeah, I definitely think that it's easy to sit there and worry about all the things that could happen, but something that I always think of is just, anything could happen, God forbid, but there could be an accident, there could be another injury. There's our dog, Addie. There could just be so many unforeseen things that aren't even MS related, and so, or autoimmune disease related, and so we live our lives hoping for the best, preparing as best we can, but we can't prepare for anything that's unexpected more than how we would prepare for anything else. So it's just one of those things that we shouldn't try to worry too much about those things before they happen, because again, anything can happen at any point, and so the best thing you can do is just to enjoy here and now. Be smart in your decisions, but don't let your fears hold you back, and don't let it come between you and your relationship, and really try not to make it so difficult for yourself. So next question is that someone said, my husband is so worried that I fear he has stopped enjoying his own healthy lifestyle. What would you tell him?
I mean, I guess that's a hard thing to answer. I don't know what individually everyone goes through, as far as for how they handle stress. But I would try to not let someone's MS rule their lives, at least, because it's already something that can limit certain experiences, and so for you to further exacerbate it by letting the fear add to it on top of it, you're really just limiting the opportunities that you guys have together. And at that point, I don't know how exactly I would tell someone to handle their stress, but I would urge you guys to be open with each other, and when there are problems, deal with them. But when there aren't problems, to not dwell on what isn't there. I know that sounds a lot like my answer to the previous question, but I think it holds true still. We can only deal with things as they happen. We can't address issues before they occur, right? So I would take it one step at a time. The life that people share together, it's a journey, and you're never going to get it perfect. So you just try to get better by day by day.
Absolutely. And yeah, and so to reach out to your husband also, just enjoy the time that you have. Nothing's ever promised. We're so grateful that I'm still able to do the things that I can do, so just make the most of that time. And that's what I would say. If you're really afraid, channel your fear into doing more things together, fitting more into the schedule as much as you can handle, and have those life experiences. The things that you're most afraid you might not be able to do, then try to go out and do them now while you can. And we really hope that you'll be able to do them forever, but get as much in while you can, and that's how you should live life anyway, autoimmune disease or not, because nothing's ever promised. And so living your best life and being healthy is fantastic, and doing as much as you can do, which I firmly believe the more that you do, the more you can do. And so just training yourself to kind of think that way. And then our last question, which is it's not so much about being in a relationship, and so take it for what it's worth. We're obviously not single, and I wasn't diagnosed until after we were married, but we did get a question that I thought was really important to address and hear both of our opinions on, and I hope that it's helpful. Would be, what would you say to someone who's currently single and dating in the COVID times and finding it really hard to date with MS, and how to confront people with that? You want to go first?
Sure. I guess my first observation would be that, when I was dating a long time ago, I never started a date with divulging every aspect of my life. You tell people things as it becomes appropriate. So, when the moment is when you feel comfortable, I guess really that's when you should address it. That's when it's most important, is for when you feel it's time to address it. No one can tell you when it's time for you to address something like that. And when you do, I would make sure it comes with a lot of education. When you feel it's time to tell someone, make sure that you explain it thoroughly. I myself knew nothing about MS before Sunny was diagnosed. So there may be a lot of misconceptions, there may be just a lot of curiosity, honestly, at that point. So yeah, I would just again, make sure that you fully explain what MS is and what it entails and what MS means for you in your life. Does it mean that you can't do things? Does it mean that, you're prohibited in some capacity? Just be honest with people. And if they're, if they're scared off by the fact that you have MS, then I would say that that person really wasn't right for you anyways, and it wasn't going to work out. So
Yeah, I
they're
think
lost.
that they saved you a lot of time if
Sure.
you guys have a great connection and establishment, and they tell you that it's just not something that they're okay with. Respect that. That's their boundaries, and they were not the person who's meant to be
Sure.
by your side with an autoimmune disease for the rest of your life. And that doesn't necessarily say, we're not saying that they're a bad person. It's just they weren't the one for you, because this is your life, this is your circumstance, and you have to spend your life with someone who's going to love every single part of you, and you want to have the best shot that you can at being happy and having a fulfilling relationship. I would like to just say that, again, I've had MS for quite a while. I've had MS for the entirety of the time I ever dated Jack, and I had symptoms, and I always had fears about, I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what all these random illnesses that I was having and stringing together were even called. He just knew I was having issues a lot, so it wasn't like I had to sit down and say I have MS, but I did have to tell him, I get vertigo, I get these things, and he comes from a family that wasn't very sick very often, had a completely different relationship with what it meant to be sick, and I have a lot of other family members with different conditions, and so we come from different backgrounds, but it's something that it's a learning experience for both of us. And again, we had to kind of realize how each other operates and learn to explain what we're going through and how we feel about it. But I just want to emphasize that if you're afraid to tell someone about your MS, especially in the beginning of a relationship, and you feel guilty about it or you feel sorry about it, I would really, really take some time before jumping into a relationship to make sure that your relationship with your MS is strong enough where no one's going to ever be able to make you feel bad about it, because you shouldn't. It's not your fault. It is not something that you have to apologize for. It is a strength, in my opinion, because having MS does build character. Having an autoimmune disease does allow you to see the world in a different way. And it really gives you so much more character and just a different viewpoint of selflessness and what it means to be loving and caring, because it's a hard thing to ask for help. And when we've had to ask for help, we also know how important it is to give it and how much it means to people. So to ever feel sorry for that, or like you don't want to scare someone away with that, I just wouldn't approach it like that. And I know it's human, and I know I did that a lot, and I'm speaking hindsight is 2020, but if you're dating and you're not coming from that place of strength, then it's going to be harder for that person to meet you halfway. I think that people adopt our own viewpoints on our autoimmune disease. If I approach it feeling scared and acting like it's something to feel sorry for and apologize for, then, it might cause the other person to think that maybe it's something that they should be more worried about. So I really hope this helps. I know it's the day before Valentine's Day, so I hope everyone's got some special plans and staying safe. We just wish everyone the best. We know relationships are hard enough without all the other drama of health issues, but that's life, and you find someone who loves you and you hang on tight, and just make sure that you are always, always being a good partner, being fair, being honest.
I agree. Happy Valentine's Day, guys.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.